I'm Nick Alberts. In this 5-part video series, I'll introduce you to Visual C# by showing you how to create a program that loads a picture from a file and displays it in a window. You'll learn how to create a project, debug an application, add controls like checkboxes and buttons to a form, position controls on a form by using layouts, add dialog boxes to a form, write code by using IntelliSense and code snippets, and write event handler methods. In this first video, you'll learn how to create a project. The first thing I'm going to do is create a Windows Forms application project. On the File menu, I'll point to New and then click Project. I'll be using C#, and I'll click Windows Forms Application. I'll call the application Picture Viewer. You can see that Visual Studio has created the solution. I'm going to save it by clicking the Save All button. The Visual Studio Integrated Development Environment, or IDE, contains many windows. In this video, I'll be using 3: the Main window, Solution Explorer, and the Properties window. If your IDE doesn't look like this, click Reset Window Layout on the Window menu. If any of the windows are missing, on the View menu, click Properties window or Solution Explorer, whichever one is missing. If there's an extra window open, click the Close button in the upper right. I want to briefly introduce the 3 windows that I'll be using. The Main window is where you design your user interface and write code. Currently, it shows a form in Design View. If I double-click the form, I can see the code associated with the form on another tab. This is the code editor. At the top of the window, there are now 2 tabs, form1.cs and form1.cs design. I'll switch back to Design View. Solution Explorer is where all the files in a solution appear. If I select a file, I can see all of its properties. I'll select the Picture Viewer Solution file. Notice that the Properties window changes to display the properties of the solution. If I double-click a code file, which ends in .cs in Visual C#, the code file or the design view of the code file opens. Here's a code file, and here it is in Design View. A property is an attribute of an object. For example, one attribute of a form is the color of its foreground. The Properties window is where you change the properties of items that you select in the other windows. When I created the solution earlier, I created a program that already runs. To show you, I'll run the program by clicking the Start Debugging Toolbar button, which is this button here. As you can see, the program doesn't do much yet, it just displays an empty window, but it does run. When you run your program from inside the IDE, it's called debugging because you typically do this to track down and fix bugs, which are errors in a program. To stop debugging, I can click this button here, or just close the window, like this. Now I'm going to use the Properties window to change the way the form looks. To use the Properties window, I have to be in Design View. I can see that I am because the Form.cs Design tab is selected, and because I can see the form here in the Designer. First, I'll click the form to make sure its properties are displayed in the Properties window. And I can see that I'm looking at the properties for the form. I can set the various properties of the form here. I can set the foreground and background color, the title text that appears at the top of the form, the size of the form, and other properties. First, I want to specify the text that appears in the title bar of the application. To do that, I'll change the text property of the form. I'll find the text property in the Properties window and type in some text. When I press Enter, I can see that the text that I typed appears in the title bar of the form. Notice, by the way, that I can order properties by categorized or alphabetical view by clicking these buttons. For now, I'm going to keep it in the alphabetized view. Now I'm going to resize the form in the Designer. Before I do that, notice the size property here. Now I'll resize the form by clicking this small white square and dragging it to make the form a little bit wider and taller. Notice that the size property has changed in the Properties window. I'll set the size property to about 550 by 350. That's close enough. Now I'll run the program again by clicking the Start Debugging Toolbar button. And I'll stop the program so that I can continue working on it. And that's as far as I'll go in this video. To continue creating this application, see the second video in this tutorial. In that video, you'll learn how to design the application by adding controls to the form.